I am going to discuss the key historical elements of British cinema. It is a little known fact that a British man played a pivotal role in the very early development of cinema. The first celluloid film with moving pictures on it was made by an Englishman called William Friese Greene in 1889 in Hyde Park. It was the first ever instance of a moving image being projected. He went on to patent the technique a year later. This was some 2 years before the Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis, who are generally considered the fathers of modern film, produced their first work. They didn't bring their picture show to London until 1896. By the late 1800s, there were Americans attempting to project an image onto a screen. Meanwhile, Friese Greene was already looking to do the same thing in a way which could make money. Another important duo were Robert W. Paul and Burt Akers. They were the first people to build a 35mm camera, and they produced the first British film, Incident at Clovelly Cottage, in 1895. Another Brit, George Albert Smith, was responsible for devising the first colour system, Kinema-Colour, in 1908. In 1912, the British Board of Film Classification was founded. They proceeded to introduce the certificates U for Universal and A for Adult. In 1927, Parliament introduced the Cinematographers' Trade Bill in an effort to save the UK film industry, which was flagging at this stage. It ensured that 5% of the total number of pictures shown in theatres were British. This increased to 20% by 1936. The British Film Institute and the National Film Archives were founded in the 1930s. Their work, amongst many other things, ensures old movies are preserved and restored. The BFI also invests lottery funds in film development and production, as well as organising exhibitions and screenings which focus on particular areas of cinema. The 40s saw British directors making patriotic war films such as In Which We Serve. Other key films of the era are The Third Man, directed by Carol Reed. A brooding and suspenseful mystery, many argue it is the best film ever made. Of equal importance is David Lean's screen adaptation of Great Expectations. It is broadly considered the best book-to-film crossover ever produced. This decade also saw the birth of Ealing Comedy, a series of work by Ealing Studios, of which one of the best known examples is The Ladykillers. Astonishingly, screenwriter William Rose claimed to have dreamt the entire film, simply remembering the details when he woke up. The 50s and 60s saw the birth of the prolific Carry On film franchise, where a regular cast of characters embark on comedic misadventures loaded with innuendo. A number of Beatles films were released over the same period, such as 1964's A Hard Day's Night, where the Fab Four displayed comedic acting skills. This is an early example of rock stars appearing in motion pictures. Later, their somewhat experimental Magical Mystery Tour was not well received. This is because a large part of its appeal was supposed to be the psychedelic colours, but it was broadcast on TV in black and white. The Monty Python films of the 70s caused much controversy. Life of Brian especially angered Christian groups because of its sending up of the story of Jesus. Stanley Kubrick is one of the most essential British bass directors of all time. A true auteur who left Hollywood for the UK, he masterminded the epic 2001 A Space Odyssey, as well as the classic horror The Shining. He was known for his eccentricity/mad genius, having once employed someone to photograph doors for a year. He is also reported to have filmed The Shining in chronological order, an extremely impractical way of doing things. Usually filmmaking is planned in such a way so as all the scenes which take place in a particular location are shot at the same time, to save having to rebuild sets and to avoid continuity problems in outdoor locations. Films were becoming more gruesome and provocative at this time. The Exorcist was banned after too many cinema goers threw up or fainted, and 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was too bloody for some, driving them to walk out of theatres in disgust. In some ways, the 1980s was, to begin with, not a good time for British cinema. There wasn't enough money in the industry, and pictures that were being made in the UK were almost exclusively American financed, or the work of American directors and producers. But the decade proved to be a triumph, with British productions like Local Hero and With Nell and I emerging as classics. Now, let's cast our minds back to the 90s. There was a plenitude of acclaimed UK romantic comedies like Bridget Jones, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and Notting Hill. This trend continued into the noughties with modern favourites like Love Actually cleaning up at the box office. The Full Monty was a feel-good movie released in the midst of an economic recession. Its enormous popularity is believed to be down to the fact that people needed cheering up. More recent years have seen British equivalents of crude but hilarious US teen comedies like American Pie hit the big screen. Kevin and Perry Go Large from the year 2000 and the In-Betweeners movies, which were released between 2011 and 2014, employ gross-out humour and intelligent characterisation to satirise the behaviour of British adolescent misfits. So, what of the future of UK cinema? Currently, the quirky and original Yesterday is on general release. The premise is that a man wakes up to discover he is the only person to have heard the music of the Beatles. Next year, we'll see the release of Chicken Run 2, a welcome sequel to the beloved Aardman claymation original. It's safe to say that the industry is in a healthy state, with a strong and varied list of pictures to look forward to.